Advocate today, I'm Aaron Dean. President Joe Biden is promising to address the inequities in the investment and treatment of HBCUs in our country. The president met with his board of advisors on HBCUs. Biden says that the administration is committed to making sure college is affordable and accessible. He is urging 16 states to address funding disparities at HBCUs. The group talked about ways to improve infrastructure and research capabilities while connecting students to opportunities beyond campus. The Department of Education has delivered more than $7 billion to HBCUs. The justices of the Supreme Court have returned to Washington as their approval ratings plummet to new lows. The 9 justices are meeting in person for the first closed-door conference of the new term. The court will hear cases ranging from abortion pill access to gender-affirming care. Questions have continued about the court's ethics and legitimacy. The court has struggled to respond to the controversy in the wake of cases like the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. Meanwhile, Supreme Court Justice Kagan says that the High Court should adopt a code of ethics similar to the one that governs lower court judges. Justice Kavanaugh has also expressed support for ethics reform. The court will begin hearing cases in early October. California now has 9 pro-LGBTQ+ laws on the books. The laws cover several key LGBTQ+ protections. There will now be competency training for teachers. One of the bills creates new privacy requirements for people who change their gender or identity. There'll be new standards on all gender bathrooms for businesses and schools. Police are now being asked to use an arrestee's chosen name and pronouns in police reports. And there's also a new law to protect LGBTQ+ children from hostile homes and form a new advisory task force for LGBTQ+ students. Newsom says that the state is committed to working towards safer and more inclusive spaces for all Californians. The ripple effect of Bud Light's campaign with trans activist and influencer Dylan Mulvaney has many wondering if brands will remain committed to LGBTQ+ consumers. A boycott caused the beer giant to lose its spot as the #1 beer in America. Well, to better understand views on boycotts and even wokeness, Do the Work teamed up with Disco for the LGBTQIA+ Consumer Insights Report. Kate, hello, how are you today?
I'm great, Aaron. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. We're so glad to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me here. I'm very excited to talk about all things Do the Work and Disco.
All right, well, let's hop right on into it. So, how has consumer behavior regarding boycotting brands evolved in recent years? And what are the key differences in behaviors among the different generations and the LGBTQ individuals?
So we surveyed about 10,000 people. This is the 3rd time we've done that, so we have some comparison data. And to answer your question directly around wokeness and backlash and boycotting, it's been a crazy year. We all know about Bud Light. We all know about Target. I can name a whole host of others, but we're in this environment of which people are getting more and more skeptical about how they can talk to the queer community. And that is hard to see in the industry. And so we wanted to get our pulse on whether or not, consumers are willing to boycott brands. And it looks like they are, as well as have understanding for people to make missteps or brands to make missteps, which also it looks like they are. So starting with wokeness, just high level, it is an extremely polarizing word. And I think we all know that. It can be utilized as a weapon and it can be utilized as a tool. And really what we've learned is its definition, depending on the audience subset, varies wildly. We're looking at about a third. A third of the people are indifferent. A third of the people think it's a very toxic and negative term that is about social issues and used as arsenal for the left. And then the original definition of wokeness, which was, shining light on the inequities that are prevalent in our society today. There is a third of the population that believes that, and consumers believe that as well.
So the report mentions that 85% of LGBTQ+ consumers believe that boycotts are a valid way to express feedback. What are some of those insights into the motivations behind these boycotts, and how do they differ from the general population?
Yeah, so that's a great stat and a really powerful one. when we look at the general population, we're actually looking at 70%. Use boycotting as a way to get brands to listen to them, to understand what they care about and actually express consumer action against a product or service or message. And when we look at the LGBT community, that number goes up to that 85%. So we're more prone to actually say, hey, you're not supporting us, we can't support you, which is fantastic. But on the other side of that equation, LGBT people are more likely to, listen again if you try again and do the right thing. So if somebody backtracks against a statement that was negative towards the LGBT, they are more likely to listen than any other community. So there is grace there. There's a grace gap that our community is saying, hey, we're a little bit in trouble here. We need your support. We joke all the time about Spider-Man prophecy. With great power comes great responsibility. And so we look for brands and say, hey, Bud Light, come out and talk to us again. It's not the end of the world. It wasn't great. Let's keep talking so we have time to actually make this right, because we're the fastest growing population that there is. So eventually you will have to acknowledge us. So the time is now, and it's okay as long as you meet us with grace and understanding and accountability.
And like you mentioned, sometimes these corporations, these organizations, whomever, will change their position and listen, or they'll stick to whatever it is. But in those cases, either one of those cases, do you find that there may be long-term effects of boycotting, whether it's the brand or the consumer?
There are definitely long-term effects, especially with media when it takes a mind of its own. It grows with energy, right? So we always look to say, I do the work. We want to greet everything with understanding, but we also want to hold people accountable. And the way people are holding boycotts is you're more likely to not go back to that product unless there is accountability presented. We're not seeing as much fatigue in boycotting based on, I just did this for a week, or I did this they hold the boycott until there's action. So that's a big part of what we're seeing in the survey.
And, the report also mentions that a significant drop in recall of LGBTQ plus inclusive advertising outside of Pride Month. How can brands address this lack of representation and maintain their commitment to these marginalized communities throughout the year?
Yeah, we saw a huge drop, which actually means we need more 365 work. We're regulated to June, and so people see a lot of ads and ad work and messaging and marketing and targeting towards the LGBTQIA during the month of June, obviously. But we are also gay in December. So we need to have brands step up to the plate and have an omnipresence with us to make sure that we're not regulated to 1 month in the summer. And there is a substantial drop. I believe it was 23 points between last year and this year. And that is due to the fact that we were doing a survey last year in June, and this one ran in May.
It's a very interesting point, especially when we look at other marginalized groups like, the African-American community, outside of Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, all those things. All of these groups are like, hey, we're still these people outside of these days that we've been assigned, right?
Yes, absolutely. We do say that all the time. I'm gay in December. I'm gay in July.
I'm Black all year long.
Yeah, it's not this is who I am. So it doesn't change with the seasons. And I think brands are starting to get ahead of that. There are brands that are really practicing a 365 approach, which, we love to see. We applaud. If you really want to reach us, try to reach us outside of the congestion of June. That's a big step. And have a plan. Brands, have a plan for when you're met with adversity, because you will be, because we are in a toxic, very scary environment. We're a little bit under siege. And by a little bit, I mean, we're absolutely under siege. So we need people to step up. Brands have a tremendous responsibility to change culture and be on the right side of history. And we are seeing a rise more than ever with anti-LGBT laws. Trans youth are under attack in the world today. We're seeing a spend drop in June year over year. It's time. The time is now. Come out and support us. Toe the line.
Thanks so much for watching Advocate today. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store to stream us live, and you can even subscribe on our YouTube channel. For the Advocate channel, I'm Aaron Dean.